Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Chris Adkins on George Porter Jr.
played with some New Orleans luminaries, I guess. I mean, you mentioned Dr. John, but you've also Zachary Richard, Irma Thomas, Al Johnson. I mean, Carnival Time. Come on. Marcia Ball, I guess she really isn't from New Orleans, but I associate her with New Orleans. But then on the other side, you have like John Sebastian and Raphael Sadiq. How do you adapt your playing when coming up with all these dispersed styles?
Wow. Man, you did some homework, man. um, well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying a little earlier, trying to at that time I was really trying to be this like a studio guy, and I don't know if I've got this arsenal of guitars here, and just like, it's sort of like a toolbox, where you show up to the gig, you're like, yeah, I heard this one analogy. It's like, we're a lot of these studio guys are like plumbers. You show up with your van and you're like, okay, I need a Phillips head, I need this tool. You go out to the van, I need my telly, I need my Strat, I need my for this. But it's still music, it's still 12 notes, so there's definitely a thread in all of that. Uh yeah, just try to be authentic, I guess, and do the homework, the musical homework. So like we have there's a show next Wednesday at Tipitinas. It's a tribute to, we've been doing these tribute shows the last several years. There's one for Professor Longhair, and then Earl King and Alan Toussaint last year, and this year it's Fats Domino and Huey Piano Smith. And so I've got to do a lot of homework for that and make sure I have the right sounds. Like, oh, for example, here, I'll show you this one. So last year there was one song Alan used it's called Give It Up. And Alan had, I believe it was Leo, I'm not sure, play an electric sitar on it.
Oh,
so I bought one just to play that show for one song. Yeah. But I also knew that I was going to, use it on other projects. Yeah. Can you hear that at all?
yeah, you can.
It's just a sound. And it was used on,
I know exactly what song you're talking about. When you played that, I was like, oh, I know that song.
Yeah. So I just try to do that. It's like, hey, this needs this, so let me get that and let me shed it and come in there swinging, yeah. And I try to approach every gig that way, I guess. The guitars I play with George, I bought specifically
Right.
for that music, that kind of stuff.
Right. So you filled the last time that I saw George play with the Running Pardners, I think Brent was still his guitar player. So did you replace Brent, or have there been other people in between?
Yeah, well, so Brent retired in 2018. I started filling in for him. How I did that is there was a tour that he couldn't make, like sort of last minute, like a week away or something. And I'd met George on some other sessions, and I was playing a John Groves band, and he'd come out and sit in and stuff. But so I got called to play this tour. It's just a short, like a weekend run. But I came in, I tried to learn all the meter songs. I'd already, of course, knew a whole bunch and like studied all Leo stuff and that music, because it's incredible. And I feel like you have a responsibility as a guitar player in New Orleans to know that music and know that. And but I try to memorize all of them, and then of course George has like 50 or 60 songs of his own, so I was just cramming that week. and some of them were kind of man, it's okay to do this when you play examples, but it was kind of hard to keep some of them straight. There's one called Grass that's And another one called Same Old Thing, which starts. It's like a very small little difference in the opening riff. But the first gig, I was subbing in for Brent. First gig, I had all this memorized. I made notes on all that kind of stuff, but I felt like I had it in me. And the first show, he's like, "Hey Chris, how's this one go?" Like it's like, "You're asking me." So it kind of relieved all the tension, or that okay, because I didn't know if he was going to be real specific about.
You probably knew better because you just immersed yourself for a week in it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. He's amazing. I love him so much as a person, to his family and all that. But anyway, to kind of get back to your question, so I started filling in for Brent when he couldn't make shows more frequently. It started happening more frequently leading up to 2018, and he retired, did his last show at Jazz Fest of 2018, and he had moved to Natchez, Mississippi, I believe, and he's also an incredible cook, chef, and he started a food truck, I think he had, based off the Earl King Street Beats. He's at Street Eats, I think he called it. And but so I think I don't know for sure, but I think he was just kind of ready for a change in his life and that kind of thing at that time. And but I'm a huge fan of his playing, and incredible slide player, and I love him, man. And so then, yeah, when I guess some years later, he moved back to New Orleans, and he'll come by and sit in and stuff, and just utmost respect for him. We just saw each other for a tribute show for Russell Baptiste passing, and he sat in with us. But I don't believe there were other guitar players that filled in after that. There was one exception. There was a run at Sweetwater in California. Was it Music Hall? I think it's right. Sweetwater Music Hall.
Sweetwater Music Hall. That's a great spot.
Yeah, I love that spot. And Bob Weir was going to sit in, but so he specifically requested Brian Stoltz, even though Brian was never in the Runnin' Partners, because at that time Art was still alive too. So Terrence Houston, the drummer, and George and Brian were three parts of the Funky Meters. So it was sort of like he tried his best to like not play the songs that the Funky Meters played. And these were, that kind of stuff, or they had Foundation of Funk. So at the time these are Foundation of Funk songs, and these are Funky Meter songs, and these are Runnin' Partner songs. And of course we did a lot of meters, but we would do songs that they never played live. That's the other thing. It's like a lot of those instrumentals on those early records, they did them one time in the studio and never played them live. Like George would call, like, "Hey, can we play this song?" And like, no, we're gonna play the hits. We're gonna play. So a lot of those tunes never got to be heard live by the Meters. So George started pulling those old tunes back out and stuff. But anyway, so Brian did that weekend, but they were careful not to get the Funky Meters pretty much three parts of that. But I love Brian too, man. He was also at that. There's a picture of me, Stoltz, and Brent at this tribute a few weeks ago. And Brian's been working on a record too, and I this little while ago I went up and heard some of the tracks at the studio, and it's gonna be really cool. I'm such a fan of his playing too. He just has a way, his feel is so authentic. I feel like no matter how much I study or like try to shed that certain things, it's like this guy grew up at that time with him, and was directly influenced by Hendrix and all that kind of stuff, and just an authenticness to it. And of course, same with George, and one of my favorite things when we're at the Leaf, it's kind of real low key and just fun and loose. We'll jam, we'll stretch, and try things, and some work great, some kind of fall, and but it's still always a blast. But he'll start calling some of these old tunes that he grew up listening to, these old R&B songs in New Orleans, and he'll sing some of those, and it's just so real. It's such the real deal that I just love it so much. I mean, like, I don't know. I don't mean to be rambling on here, but
Makes sense though. And Kevin, you may have already talked about this, but as you were saying that, I was just remembering when we talked with George Porter and how, I don't even know if humble is the right word. I think he's just someone who is so authentic and happy to do what he does, that it was like talking to someone that I've known for years and years, is just, I wouldn't necessarily have expected that just because of, the history there, but it immediately was like, okay, we're a part of this conversation. We're all here together. And I don't know, that was a really cool experience.
Yeah, yeah. I think we might have been on the road when y'all did that because I think I remember him like having to step out and or something, maybe. I don't know. But yes, he's still a musician's musician. Like that's the cool thing. He was a sideman, before the meters and has been a sideman for many other, great artists, of course. So he knows how we feel as, a musician that's not the star and like is but at the same time, he's a star in his own right. So as far as hanging out with him, it never feels like that thing. It always feels like we're one of the guys. And his stories are so great too. I mean, just some little thing will send him off. Oh, this, Chuck Berry and this, or whatever, and I just, with both George and Maria, we're like, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And George has been working on a book. And I don't know if Maria eventually started that too, but
doesn't George have a documentary kicking out there too?
yes, there is one that's going to be that we've recorded a lot of stuff for, and it should be, I don't know when it's getting released, but maybe in the next year or so. Yes, there's a documentary on him in the works.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.